Nobody saw this coming. Nobody saw this coming. Not the analysts, not the coaches, not the people who have spent their entire careers trying to predict where professional tennis is heading. There is a 20-year-old player ranked outside the top 30. 0 Grand Slam finals, 0 Grand Slam titles. And yet, when tournament directors sit down to build the day's schedule, her match goes first. Not because of her ranking, not because of her trophy cabinet, because if they slot her in late, thousands of people walk out before the top seeds even finish warming up. That is not gossip, that is logistics. That is the operational reality of the WTA Tour in 2026. And the people running this sport are equal parts thrilled and completely lost trying to explain it. Her name is Alexandra Eala. And the moment you start pulling on this story, you realize it does not follow any of the rules the sport has spent a century writing. How does someone become the main attraction of a global sport before winning the thing that global sports say you have to win first? How do you become bigger than the champions without being one yet? The deeper you dig into that question, the more you understand that this is not really a tennis story. It is a story about identity, about power, about what fame actually means in a world that no longer plays by the old rules. And it starts in the last place anyone expected. The Philippines is not a tennis nation. Say that in any press box, any commentary booth, any coaching clinic in the world, and people will nod. Not to be cruel, simply because it is historically true. The development pipelines that carry young players from local courts to Grand Slam draws, the kind that Spain, the United States, and the Czech Republic have built over generations, simply do not exist there. Filipino sports culture runs on basketball and boxing. Tennis was something you watched on television from a different world entirely. So when a young girl from Manila started showing something that scouts struggled to call promising because promising felt too small, the story was already unusual. Then it became something else entirely. If you want to follow every chapter of this story as it unfolds, subscribe to Pro Tennis 360, the channel covering Alexandra Eala and the new face of women's tennis. The academy that changed everything. Rafael Nadal, 22 Grand Slam titles, widely regarded as the greatest competitor the sport has ever produced. He personally opened the doors of his academy in Mallorca to a teenage girl from Manila. If you know tennis culture, you know exactly what that moment means. Nadal does not hand out spots as favors. He does not attach his name to players out of courtesy. When he looks at a young athlete and says, "This person belongs here," he is staking a piece of his own legacy on that call. The tennis world took notice, and then it waited. Because the Nadal Academy had produced talented players before. Players who trained in the same environment, absorbed the same philosophy of relentless baseline warfare and iron mental toughness, and then quietly settled into the middle ranks of the professional tour, never breaking through. The skeptics were ready. They had seen this story. They already had the file labeled "Beautiful Prospect," didn't quite make it. But what the Nadal Academy was building in Alexandra Eala was not just a backhand or a serve. It was something deeper and harder to measure. The capacity to believe in yourself when absolutely nothing around you is confirming that belief. The willingness to lose badly, to absorb it, to process it overnight, and to walk back onto a practice court the next morning and do the work anyway.
That is the philosophy Nadal modeled across 22 Grand Slams and an entire career defined by refusing to accept that a match was over until the last point was played. His coaches understood that the physical tools, the footwork, the topspin, the court positioning were transferable. But the mentality had to be built from inside. It could not be installed. It had to be earned through experience that was often painful and almost always invisible to the outside world. Eala spent years earning it. Courts in countries most casual sports fans could not locate on a map. Opponents who were fully grown professionals when she was still a teenager. Wins that generated almost no coverage. Losses that would have ended the careers of players with less resolve. Through all of it, she kept showing up. The academy kept building, and the tennis world, still waiting for its verdict, had no idea what was coming. The moment that changed a nation. Then 2022 happened. US Open Junior Girls Singles Final. The hard courts of Flushing Meadows beneath the New York sky. Alexandra Eala, this teenager from a country that had never produced a Grand Slam champion at any level, walked onto that court and won. First Filipino in history to claim a Grand Slam title. Full stop. The footage spread instantly. Every major tennis account shared the clip. The highlights circulated across platforms within minutes. But here is the thing that mattered most, and the thing that almost every mainstream sports outlet missed entirely. It did not just spread among tennis fans. It spread to millions of Filipinos who had never watched a single professional match in their lives. People watching a 20-second clip on a cracked phone screen at midnight, tears running down their faces, not entirely sure why they were crying. That reaction, that specific emotional response from people who do not even follow the sport, is the first key to understanding everything that comes after. Because what happened in New York in 2022 was not simply a result on a scoreboard. It was a representation event. It was the moment an entire archipelago of over 115 million people saw their identity reflected on one of the most prestigious stages in world sport for the very first time. That kind of moment does not just build a fan base. It builds something closer to devotion. There is a difference between fans who follow a player because they are excellent and supporters who follow a player because that player means something larger than sport. Eala had both from that day forward. The tennis community respected what she had done technically, but the Filipino community, at home and scattered across the globe, felt something that had nothing to do with rankings or draw brackets. They felt seen, represented, legitimized on a stage that had previously been built entirely for other people. You cannot manufacture that response. No marketing budget can engineer it. No PR campaign can engineer it. It either happens or it does not. And in 2022, on a hard court in New York, it happened. The story that would eventually shake the entire WTA tour had just found its foundation. The grind, nobody filmed. What followed the US Open Junior title is the part that highlight reels almost always skip over. But it is the part that actually explains who Alexandra Eala is. She turned professional and entered a world that has very little interest in narrative or potential. The professional tour operates on results. Rankings are calculated from points, and points come from winning matches against other professionals, most of whom have been doing this for longer, who have better support structures around them, who have been navigating the pressures of the circuit since before Eala had ever played a match outside the Philippines. She grinded, unglamorous tournaments, early round exits that barely made the small print of tennis news websites, opponents who were fully grown adults when she was still a teenager who had just arrived from an academy in Spain, adjusting to life on tour while simultaneously trying to build the on-court game that could compete at the highest level. She lost matches she should have won. She won matches she had no business winning. Courts and countries that most casual sports fans could not point to on a map. Wins that generated almost zero coverage. Losses that would have broken players with thinner resolve. This is the period that separates the players who have talent from the players who become genuinely dangerous. Talent is common at the professional level. Every person in a WTA main draw is talented. What separates the middle of the rankings from the top is the willingness to stay in the process during the years when the process is not rewarding you. The Nadal Academy had prepared her for exactly this, not the circumstances. No one can prepare you for the specific texture of losing badly in a city you have never visited, playing in front of a handful of spectators, and then taking a flight the next morning to do it again somewhere else. But the philosophy, the understanding that development is not a straight line, that the work you put in when nothing is going right is exactly the work that eventually starts going right. She kept adapting. She kept showing up, and the tennis world, mostly not watching, had no idea what she was building. Miami 2025, the detonation. Miami 2025. This is where the story stops being about trajectory and starts being about seismic disruption. She arrived at the WTA 1000 event as a wild card. The tournament had to issue her a special invitation simply to get her into the draw. Her ranking was not high enough to qualify automatically. By every conventional measure of professional tennis, she was not supposed to be there. And then, round by round, against a field containing every elite player on the planet, she started winning. Not surviving, winning. Dismantling players who had been touring professionals for longer than she had been competing seriously at any level. Each victory came with the same signature: physical intensity that refused to accept a point was over, baseline exchanges that most players her age could not sustain for 20 minutes, let alone across an entire match, and a competitive presence that the crowd in Miami responded to immediately. Then came the match that changed everything. Her opponent was a multiple Grand Slam champion, a former world #1, a player so dominant over the previous several years that opponents sometimes looked beaten before the opening rally was even finished. This was not a winnable match by any rational calculation. This was the kind of match that wildcards are supposed to lose gracefully, gather experience from, and use as motivation for the next year. Alexandra Eala beat her. The moment the final point landed, the internet did not just react, it detonated. Every major sports account posted the clip within minutes. Tennis broadcasts interrupted their own programming. In the Philippines, it was past midnight. Millions of people were awake, watching on phones, on laptops, on televisions with the volume turned all the way up. The noise from homes across Manila spilled out onto the streets. She reached the semifinals. The first Filipino in WTA 1000 history to reach the Final Four. She walked in ranked outside the top 100. She walked out inside it. And the question that nobody could cleanly answer was now impossible to ignore. How does a player generate more digital engagement than the person who actually won the tournament? The Diaspora effect. 10 million people everywhere. Here is a number that matters. Over 10 million Filipinos live outside the Philippines. They are scattered across the United States, the Middle East, Europe, Asia, and every other corner of the globe. Nurses in London, construction workers in Dubai, domestic workers in Hong Kong, teachers in California, engineers in Singapore. These are people who carry their culture with them wherever they go, who feel national pride with an intensity that genuinely surprises outsiders, because that pride has been maintained across decades of distance and displacement. When one of their own appears on a world stage, they mobilize, fast and coordinated in a way that social media platforms are still struggling to fully process. They do not just watch, they post, share, comment, create, react, and pull in everyone around them who is not already watching. When Eala plays, the engagement metrics do not look like a popular athlete has a big match. They look like a national emergency. Comment sections flood with Philippine flags within minutes. Hashtags do not trend in Manila. They trend globally, because the community is not concentrated in one place. It is everywhere. Streaming numbers spike in regions that have never been traditional tennis markets. The WTA tracks all of this data in real time, and the conclusion the organization has reached is not complicated. This player is opening doors to audiences we have been trying to reach for years and consistently failing. She is doing it simply by existing and competing. No campaign, no promotional strategy, no budget allocation.
Just a 20-year-old from Manila playing tennis and carrying a community's identity onto the court with her every single time. That is extraordinary commercial power for someone at her current stage of development. The WTA has spent decades building its brand around Grand Slam titles and year-end rankings. And here is a player outside the top 30 who is quietly forcing the entire organization to rethink how it presents itself to the world. Not because anyone asked her to, but because the audience she brings with her simply cannot be ignored. The Diaspora did not discover Eala through the WTA. The WTA discovered what the Diaspora already knew. The Nadal effect, a philosophy passed down. The second layer of Eala's cultural impact operates almost invisibly until you start looking directly at it. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Nadal's legacy is not simply his 22 Grand Slam titles. Those titles are the record. His actual legacy is his philosophy. Chase every ball. Give everything on every point. Respect the game. Respect your opponent. Never, under any circumstances, stop fighting. His fans did not just admire his results. They fell in love with that code. They made it personal. They internalized it. For millions of tennis followers across the world, watching Nadal compete was not just entertainment. It was a value system on display. So when those fans watch a 20-year-old left-handed player, trained at his academy, executing that exact same brand of relentless, never-surrender tennis, the recognition is immediate. Something clicks. They see continuity. They see the values they loved in Nadal being carried forward by someone new, someone whose story is still being written, someone who plays like she genuinely believes no point is over until it is over. They adopt her, without any marketing campaign, without anyone asking them to, without a single promotional email or sponsored post. Suddenly, Eala is not just drawing Filipino fans. She is drawing millions of Nadal fans worldwide who feel a real, organic, earned connection to her story and her style. That cross-pollination of fan bases is almost impossible to engineer artificially. No agency can manufacture it. It requires a player who actually embodies the philosophy, not as performance, but as genuine competitive identity. Eala embodies it because she was shaped by it during years of training at the source. And this is the mechanism that explains why her audience is simultaneously so large and so loyal. It is not one community, it is multiple overlapping communities. Filipino diaspora, Nadal fans, women's tennis followers, general sports audiences drawn in by the underdog narrative, all arriving from different directions, all feeling a genuine connection, all showing up at the same time. The WTA has never seen this combination before, neither has anyone else. What cameras love and audiences crave. Watch her play a point where she is down match point. Watch her sprint to the edge of the court, dig up a ball that had absolutely no right to come back, crack a left-handed forehand that lands inside the line, and then pump her fist and scream something that the courtside microphones catch before the commentators can translate. You do not need a translation. You feel it. That is a player who is completely, entirely present in every single moment. In an era where professional sport can feel carefully managed and emotionally controlled, where press conference answers are crafted and social media posts are scheduled and emotional displays are calculated for branding purposes, Eala is raw. She is authentic in a way that cameras love and audiences genuinely crave. And she is 20 years old, still becoming, still figuring out the full version of who she is as a competitor. There is a specific window in the career of every great athlete, a window where the story is still being written in real time, where each match is genuinely unpredictable, where you do not yet know what the final version of this person looks like. That window is magnetic. Audiences feel it instinctively. They want to witness it. They want to be able to say years from now that they were watching from the beginning.
Established champions carry the weight of expectation. Their stories are mostly written. Their peaks are known, their tendencies mapped, their weaknesses cataloged. Watching them is watching excellence that has already been defined. There is beauty in that, but there is a different kind of electricity in watching someone who has not yet been defined, whose ceiling is still genuinely unknown, whose best matches might still be years away. Eala exists in that second space entirely. Every match feels like a chapter still building towards something enormous. The crowd does not come to see what they already know. They come because they genuinely do not know what they are about to see, and they do not want to miss it. World number 29, a number that means everything. By early 2026, Alexandra Eala reached a career-high ranking of world number 29. State that number plainly and it sounds like a solid professional achievement. A player in the top 30. Competitive, dangerous on a given day, worth watching if she draws an interesting first-round opponent. But context transforms that number entirely. World number 29 is the highest any Filipino player, male or female, has ever been ranked in the complete history of the WTA Tour. It is not close. There is no second-place Filipino player sitting at 45 or 50, making this a marginal improvement. This is a record that stands alone.
And it was set by a 20-year-old who arrived at the Nadal Academy as a teenager from a country where tennis infrastructure was essentially non-existent. She is managing all of it simultaneously, competing in singles and doubles, navigating a schedule that takes her across continents across the course of a year, handling a media presence that has expanded beyond tennis-specific outlets into mainstream sports coverage, celebrity press, and national news in the Philippines, managing sponsor obligations, carrying the weight of an entire nation's expectations into every single match she plays, a weight that does not lift between tournaments, does not take rest days, does not disappear when she is trying to sleep the night before a crucial match. Her peers in other walks of life are finishing university. She is ranked 29th in the world in her profession, representing over 100 million people while being 20 years old. Sports psychologists who have observed her describe her composure as genuinely remarkable. Not because she suppresses emotion, she shows enormous emotion, and the cameras find it every time. But because that emotion fuels her rather than fracturing her, she uses it. The crowd noise, the pressure, the weight of the moment, rather than collapsing under it, she converts it into something that pushes her harder. That is not a skill anyone teaches. That is character. And at 20, she already has it fully formed. The world is loud because everyone can feel what's coming. The traditional answer sport gives you is that attention follows achievement, that the spotlight belongs to the players at the top of the rankings, that fame is awarded by titles, by trophies, by the number of Grand Slam finals next to your name in the record books. In a pre-internet world, that logic held perfectly. The gatekeepers of attention, broadcasters, newspapers, tour schedulers, followed the rankings and the results, and the public followed the gatekeepers. The system was closed and orderly. We do not live in that world anymore. Fame is no longer simply awarded by achievement. It is generated by connection, by narrative, by the feeling a person creates when you watch them compete, by the community that forms around a story that is still unresolved, by the millions of people who do not follow a sport until someone who looks like them, who comes from where they come from, shows up on the biggest stage and refuses to leave quietly. Alexandra Eala, this 20-year-old from Manila, shaped by the greatest fighter the sport has ever produced, carrying a nation's dreams into every match she plays, generates that feeling in volumes that have genuinely stunned even the people running the organization she competes in. Tournament directors restructure entire day schedules around her. The WTA quietly rebuilds its promotional strategy around a player who has not yet won a major. Crowds arrive early for her first-round matches and stay loud until the final point. The champions will always have their titles. Their names on those trophies will never change. But right now, in this specific, unrepeatable moment in tennis history, there is one player whose name makes the crowd louder, whose schedule causes the internet to rearrange itself, whose story reaches people who have never once picked up a racket and makes them care deeply about a sport they did not follow yesterday.
The world is not loud because she has already arrived. The world is loud because everyone can feel, with that instinct that arrives before rational thought, that what is coming next is going to be something none of us will want to say we missed. Follow every step of this journey on Pro Tennis 360. Subscribe now and never miss a chapter of the most compelling story in women's tennis.